Let me ask you something. What if I told you that getting wealthy has almost nothing to do with how smart you are and absolutely everything to do with how you behave? See, financial success isn't really a hard science. It's not about complicated formulas that you learn in a classroom. It's a soft skill. And once you understand that, you unlock the key to a life of real financial freedom. It sounds totally impossible, right? Almost like a riddle. But the answer is a definite yes. And the story behind that yes is going to reveal one of the most powerful, counterintuitive truths about money you'll ever hear. So let's meet Ronald Reed and Richard Fuscone. On one hand, you've got Reed, a janitor who just quietly saved the little bits of money he could and patiently invested them in solid blue-chip stocks. And for decades, he just waited. On the other hand, you have the total opposite. Fuscone, Harvard MBA, top executive at Merrill Lynch, living in a massive 18,000 square foot mansion. We're talking 11 bathrooms, 2 swimming pools, the works. But he was leveraged up to his eyeballs, and when the 2008 financial crisis hit, poof, he was completely wiped out. Ronald Reed died a philanthropist, leaving over $8 million to charity. Richard Fuscone declared bankruptcy. The difference wasn't brains, it wasn't experience. It was all about behavior. And that right there, that is the core thesis of Morgan Housel's incredible book, The Psychology of Money. It's not about what you know, it's all about how you act. And today, we are going to unpack the key lessons from this book that could literally change your entire relationship with wealth. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to dive into some of the most brilliant ideas from this book. We'll look at why nobody is crazy with their money. We'll talk about the hidden forces of luck and risk. We'll unpack the incredibly dangerous trap of always wanting more. And finally, we'll get to what wealth actually is. And trust me, you are going to want to stick around for that last one. So let's kick things off by tackling one of the biggest reasons for financial arguments and misunderstandings out there. The fact that every single one of us sees the world of money through a completely unique lens. This idea is so powerful. You see someone buying lottery tickets when they can barely pay their bills, or taking on huge debt for a car they don't need. And it's easy to think, wow, that's just crazy. But what Housel argues is that no one is actually crazy. Every single financial decision a person makes, well, it makes perfect sense to them in that moment, based on their own personal history and view of the world. Think about it like this. Your personal experiences with money are just a tiny, microscopic sliver of what's happened in the world, but they make up something like 80% of how you think the world works. I mean, if you grew up poor and your parents lost their jobs in a recession, you're going to view risk very differently than someone whose parents were successful bankers. What seems like common sense to you is a totally alien concept to someone else. And you can see this so clearly when you look at the data. If you were born in 1950, you spent your teens and 20s watching the stock market go absolutely nowhere. So what did you learn? Stocks are a waste of time. But if you were born just 20 years later, in 1970, you watched the market multiply 10 times over during those same formative years. Your foundational belief is that stocks are a one-way ticket to wealth. Same market, different time, totally different realities. Okay. So that idea leads us perfectly into our next big concept. It's all about two forces that have way more control over our financial lives than we'd like to admit. Luck and its identical twin, risk. Look, Bill Gates is obviously a genius. No one's debating that. But he also had a 1 in a million stroke of pure luck. Back in 1968, he just happened to attend Lakeside, one of the only high schools in the entire world that had a computer. So out of about 300 million high school-age kids on the planet, he was one of maybe 300 who got this unbelievably massive head start. And at that same high school, Gates had a best friend named Kent Evans. Bill Gates himself said Kent was the best student in the class. They were these two computer whizzes, dreaming up plans to start a company together. Kent was just as smart, just as driven. He could have easily been the co-founder of Microsoft. But Kent Evans also experienced a 1 in a million event. It just wasn't luck. It was risk. He died in a mountaineering accident before he ever graduated high school. Luck and risk, they're two sides of the very same coin. It just goes to show you, the world is way too complex for 100% of your efforts to determine 100% of your outcomes. It's a pretty humbling thought, isn't it? All right, now we have to talk about what might be the single most profound lesson in this entire book. It's this psychological trap that hasn't just ruined ordinary people, it has destroyed billionaires and titans of industry. It's the endless, dangerous pursuit of more. There's this great story about the author Kurt Vonnegut. He was at a party with his friend Joseph Heller, who wrote the classic novel Catch-22.
And Vonnegut points out that their billionaire host, a hedge fund manager, made more money in a single day than Heller had earned from his legendary novel over its entire lifetime. Heller's reply was just perfect. He said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have, enough."
And you see this play out in the real world all the time. I mean, look at Rajat Gupta. This guy was the CEO of McKinsey. He was already worth $100 million. He had it all. But he was desperate to become a billionaire, so he risked everything on an insider trading scheme and ended up in prison. Or think about Bernie Madoff. His legitimate business was already making him insanely rich, but it just wasn't enough. He had to have more, so he built the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. These guys had absolutely no sense of enough.
See, the problem is social comparison, the hamster wheel. There is always someone who has more than you. It's a game you just can't win. And the only real way to win is to refuse to play. It's about deciding for yourself where the goalpost is, instead of always looking over your shoulder at someone else's. That constant hunger for more will just push you until you end up with nothing but regret.
So if chasing more is just a trap, then what's the answer? Well, this brings us to the book's most liberating and powerful solution, totally redefining what it is we're actually aiming for. Okay, this is a huge one. There's a critical, fundamental difference between being rich and being wealthy. Being rich is about your current income. You see someone driving a $100,000 car? They're rich. But wealth is invisible. Wealth is the income that you don't spend. It's the money that's quietly working for you in savings and investment accounts, giving you options, flexibility, and true freedom. And that's the big secret right there. When most people say they want to be a millionaire, what they really mean is they want to spend $1 million, which is literally the opposite of being a millionaire. True wealth is the nice car you didn't buy. It's the diamond necklace you decided against. It's the financial assets that you haven't yet turned into flashy stuff. And why is that unspent, invisible wealth so valuable? Because it pays the highest dividend possible, control over your own time. The ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. That is the ultimate prize. It's worth more than a big house. It's worth more than a fancy car. That is the freedom that true wealth buys you. And it's what leads to real, lasting happiness.
So at the end of the day, the question isn't just about how to get rich. It's about how to stay wealthy. Because getting money often requires taking risks and being optimistic. But keeping it, that requires the total opposite. It requires humility. And it requires the profound wisdom of knowing when you finally have enough. And honestly, the incredible stories and ideas we've just scratched the surface of today, they're just a small part of the 20 timeless lessons in Morgan Housel's book that will completely change how you think about money, happiness, and your life. If you want to really go deep on this and master this soft skill for yourself, I just can't recommend this book enough. There's a link to grab your own copy right in the description below. And I want you to think of it less as a purchase and more as a lifelong investment in your own freedom. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this breakdown. If you found this valuable, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into big ideas. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
If you like this video, consider subscribing to the channel and let me know in the comments what other content you'd like to see here. The link to purchase this book is below in the description. Thank you, and see you next time.